How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Welcome to Headcases, and today's guest is the author of multiple books, including the Clipper Guy Says series 100 by 100, which is 100 new haircut clients in 100 days, and his newest book, Be a $100,000 Haircutter. He is also a Guinness Book of World Record holder. Those are for the most consecutive cuts in 24 hours by an individual, most cuts in an hour, 34, fastest haircut, 55 seconds. He is also he is the Barber Lifetime Achievement Award winner. He is the ambassador for Booksy. He is a barber cosmetologist, trainer, mentor, and coach. He's the president and CEO of Zootcuts. And so let's get into this week's Head Cases. The Clipper Guy, Mr. Ivan Zoot. So, welcome. I have to say, Ivan, it is a pleasure to have you on our show, and welcome to Head Cases. I have been stalking you a bit to get material for you, but I just want to first of all say thank you so much for giving up your time and being here with us. It's an absolute honor to have you on board.
Thanks for the invitation. I was excited when your folks reached out and invited me to spend a little time with you and catch up, and it's good to do it.
Yeah, and so listen, I mean, I'm not going to be sort of jumping into you right away, but I think that most people, well, and I don't know what hairdressing, what industry they weren't, if they don't know that you hold world records with the Guinness Book of World Records. And I'm sure that you're probably sick to death of answering questions on them, but we would be remiss if our listeners didn't get a little bit of that. So first of all, I have to say congratulations on that. I don't know how you did it. I don't know what your process is, but that's what we're going to attempt to find out. So I want to find out about that first. But before I do that, how did you get into the hair game? What's your story? How did it happen? Did you have other things first?
Okay.
What happened?
Okay. Well, as far as the world records are concerned, and we'll go there after a quick introduction, I am reminded anytime I think I might want to complain about talking about the world records that Billy Joel has to sing Piano Man every single night. And I think if you ask him, he probably can't stand it. But the fans will not stand for him to take that out of the set list. So I'll take it as an honor, and I appreciate it. As far as how I got into the business, I started out elsewhere. I graduated high school. I went to community college. I got my little 2-year degree. I'd been working. I didn't go away to college. I lived at home, worked full-time, went to community college on a part-time basis. So it took me a while to get my 2 years in. And I was selling. I was in the institutional food service and restaurant industry, calling on customers and selling restaurant supplies, a job in which in 1987, my last year doing that, I made a lot of money and didn't have very much fun. But I had a customer who was a hair salon that used to buy janitorial products from me. And he seemed like a cool guy, and it seemed like a fun business. And like I said, I wasn't really having a lot of fun, but I was getting my hair cut at the time by a young lady in a shop or salon close to where I lived. And the interesting thing about Elaine was every time I went to get a haircut, I hated the haircut. I was disappointed with the haircut. Yet I kept going back. And after one disappointing haircut, walking through the parking lot, kicking the gravel, asking myself the question, why do you keep going back? I answered the question, and the question came down to the fact that I went back because I liked her. I had a professional relationship with her that I thought was the way one should relate to one's hair pro. I liked the location. I liked the price. I liked the music they played on the radio. I liked the magazines. I liked the owner. He seemed like a nice guy. I liked the bottle of gel I was buying. I liked everything about the haircut except the haircut. And at the time, my assessment was that the haircut business wasn't really the haircut business. The haircut business was sales. And I had spent much of my youth underneath an automobile with a wrench. And I said, wrench, scissors, there can't be that much difference. And I'm in sales. I can probably do this. And so I went on a tour. I left work early the next day and I went on a tour at what was at the time Pivot Point's main location here in the Chicagoland area. I finished the tour and I wrote a check and I signed up for beauty school and I went home and I told my fiance, who now, 40 years later, still married, but told my fiance, hey, guess what? I signed up for beauty school, having never mentioned the two-word phrase beauty school ever before in my life. She's like, you kidding me? I said, no, I'm going to do this. And then we went to dinner with my parents, and I told my parents, hey, guess what? I signed up for beauty school. And my father said, you what? And my mother said, what kind of job is that for a nice Jewish kid? And I said, well, Vidal Sassoon's Jewish. It's probably going to work out. And then we went to my in-laws. They're not my in-laws yet, but my wife's parents, and told my in-laws that I had signed up for beauty school. And without missing a beat, my father-in-law said, hey, that's awesome. When you're ready, we'll open a shop. Now, I had no intention of owning a shop at that point. I just wanted to get through beauty school. But long story short, most of my family was rather supportive. And years later, as I got to know the industry better, kept in touch with Elaine, I discovered that the reality was Elaine was a perfectly good hair cutter, but Elaine was challenged in consultation skills. And it's not that it was a bad haircut, it was a perfectly good haircut, but it wasn't the haircut that I wanted. And that experience really reinforced for me the notion that while haircuts matter, they only matter to a point. That when you get into this business, you're really in the business of building and maintaining, cultivating, nourishing relationships with humans. And that really has been the foundation of my success in the business, because I tell you, on a scale of 1 to 10 as a hair cutter, I am not more than a rock solid 5. Proudly a rock solid 5. But hopefully I'm hitting it out of the park on the people skills, the soft skills that I believe are so fundamental to success in the business. So that's the long story short, or long story long, of how I wound up, 35 years later, talking to you today.
Well, Ivan, what I loved about what you said, there's several things that are in there, and the first thing that I did notice was, number one, was that we have a similarity. Um, I didn't want to be a hairdresser either. I was going to be a mechanic, and I wanted to pull wrenches just because I have no idea how to pull a wrench. I had never pulled a wrench before, but I wanted to be, because I just loved cars. And so that we have that similarity. And then the second thing that I loved about what you said was this, and I just wrote it down here. I put in my notes, I've just got this little triangle that I wrote in there, and I wrote on the top, I wrote skill. On the bottom left, I wrote relationship, and on the bottom right, I put dollars for sales, because I think that's what happens in our business. And I can speak from that personal side where when I got into business, I was just a floater. I wouldn't have hired me until I had a wake up call. Long story, but I'll leave for another time. But it wasn't until I had a wake up call and I realized that I had to go about a skill. But at the very beginning, I was all skill and no relationship and no sales. And then I learned that if I could build relationships and have fun with people, that I could make I'll just say a pea pot, because it sounds better at the beginning of our relationship here. But I could build up I'll just got to say, it sounds better when you say a piss pot full, but a piss pot full of money if you combined all of those things, your sales skills, your relationship skills, and mix that in with the skills that you have for our industry. And I love that you put it that way. And I love the fact, as soon as I started looking into all your videos, and which I must say are great, and I'm going to encourage anybody that's out there that's listening or watching right now, you go on there and listen to them, because there is just nugget upon nugget that's on there. And what I loved is how I think the average person, if they think, here's a guy that has the Guinness Book of World Records for XYZ, that all you do is clipper work, but you do so much more than that. I mean, the way that you talk about pricing and business models and so on, and I've seen how you've mentored people. It just pulls me back to that. And I want to get into that business side in a bit, but I would be remiss if we didn't help people understand and know a little bit about those world records. So let's jump into that. So my first question is, how the hell would you know what to do to get into, like, if I'm going, I want to set a world record, I wouldn't have the foggiest idea of what to do to get a world record or even to be in whatever it is in line.
You know what? Guinness tracks world records for everything. Now, you have to remember, based on our tenure in the industry, when I did this initially, we didn't have this toy called the internet. You had to go to the literal
Right.
Guinness book and you had to look these things up. And you had to call Guinness on a telephone in London and have a conversation, or you had to write letters. And I know we're dating ourselves here, but I live in Chicago, and my salon was located in the Chicago suburbs. And as any good Midwesterner knows, on a weekday in Chicago in February, when there's 14 inches of snow in the parking lot, no one gets a haircut. So you have a bunch of hair
Right.
professionals, me and my team, I own my shop at this point. Me and my team are sitting around, and we can't play on our phones because phones didn't exist. And usually a bunch of hairdressers sitting around usually find ways to get in trouble. Arguments, fights, who knows? And it turned into who's faster. And I wasn't really part of the argument. It was the girls mostly fighting amongst themselves because hands down, everybody knew that I was faster than the rest of them. So the conversation migrated into, I bet there's a world record for this. Found out what the world record was. I looked at the world record, fastest haircut in the world, most haircuts in an hour. I looked at the numbers and I said, I don't think I can break the fastest haircut in the world. I don't think I can do that. But I said, I think I can I can break the record for the most haircuts in an hour. And I hung a date out on the calendar and I said, I am going to attempt this. I created a system, not a haircut, but a system for approaching any haircut shoulder length or shorter. Now, it's important backstory to understand that this had happened after a point in my career in which I woke up one day and decided to specialize. When I went to beauty school, if you said you were going to be a colorist, they would have looked at you and said, you're going to be a what? Because that job didn't exist. When I went to school, everybody did everything. Today, as we know, our industry's become highly, highly focused and specialized. But I made the decision many, many years ago to specialize in short hair. Later, it migrated into men's hair. Later, it migrated even further to clipper cutting. But I threw down a line in the sand one day and I said, if your hair touches your shoulder, you can't sit in my chair. Because I understood the economics of short hair, frequency of visit, take-home hair care product, referrals, all the benefits associated with short hair. So I spent a year. I cut one client. I stayed after work late every night for a year. I cut one client to work out and hone literally the choreography of an efficiency system for productivity and haircutting. I paid one employee every night 1 extra hour's pay to stay with me, to learn my system, and to also serve in a support capacity. Long story short, a year later, I staged a massive charity event and publicity stunt. We charged money for the haircuts. We gave all the money away to charity. We threw a party in the parking lot with a live band and a restaurant providing free food. You paid your money, you got your hand stamped, you got in line, you got a haircut. And when the dust settled, when it was all done, August 23rd of 1998, I had broken the world record for the most haircuts in an hour, and 3 of those haircuts were faster than the original record for single fastest haircut. So here's the numbers. Originally, the fastest haircut in the world was 2 minutes and 23 seconds. I broke the record. I did a haircut, my fastest, in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. I also, originally the record was 18 haircuts in 1 hour. I did 22 haircuts in 1 hour. So I've got my 2 world records. I wrote a book. At the time, I was working, doing some platform work on behalf of a manufacturer. So I started ramping up my educational activities at that point. Ultimately, shortly thereafter, I sold my business because I was getting very busy in the education side of the industry. Fast forward a decade, exactly 10 years to the day, August 23rd of 2008, with the support of my now full-time employer in education in the industry, we did it again. Because someone broke my records along the way, and that got me rather upset. So I recaptured the world record for fastest in the world. I recap, and 16 times now I've broken that single fastest haircut record. I recaptured the record for 1 hour, and I also set the record for 24 hours of nonstop continuous haircutting. And for your listening community, I have good news for all of your listeners. The good news is I'm never doing this ever again. So the object of the game at this point is for some young person, energetic and enthusiastic, with new technologies and new information, to learn my system, to take it to the next level, break my records, and take my job. Because that's how it works. Records are made to be broken.
Right. You said two things in there that sparked my curiosity. Number one, I was told at one time I was on stage doing a show, and God knows where, and they just said to me, "Look, we're having a hard time holding the audience, but when you step on stage, people stay." So he said, "Can you just stay on stage for the rest of the day?" And I went, "Oh, all right." And that night after we went into the bar naturally and had a little, how would you say, keep awake libation. And one of the salespeople there said, "I'm now presenting you with the Cast Iron Bladder Award." And I think I'm passing on the torch right now for the Cast Iron Bladder Award, because 24 hours of doing hair. Oh my God. How, number one, I'll give you that honor. I've passed that on. But number two is, where do you get how did you get the models, and how did you get them lined up? And is there any qualifications that Guinness has
Sure.
that you have to aspire
Well,
to?
first, Chris, what I want to tell you is this. You are not unique in that when I talk about the world records, no one asks me about the tools, the system, or the techniques. The only two things they ask me about is, how'd you go to the bathroom and where'd you get the people? That's the only two questions anybody ever asks. And the simple answers to your questions are, Guinness allows in endurance records 5 minutes of every hour for bathroom and nutrition. So run to the bathroom and grab something to eat or drink. However, I will tell you, in the 24-hour records, I use no breaks for the first 10 hours. And I think most of our listeners that have a few years experience in the industry can go 10 hours behind a chair without a bathroom break. That's not monumentous. The remaining 14 hours, I use 2 of my 5-minute bathroom opportunities. So the answer is you have to really carefully manage your fluid intake. You don't want to become dehydrated, but you don't want to gotta go. So there's an art form there. And then number two, the question of where'd you get the people? The answer is very simple. It's 2 4-letter words. And those 2 4-letter words are free beer. When you put beer in the parking lot, and the first time I did this, I did it here in Chicago in the suburbs, but the second time, the event was hosted by a barbershop and hair salon chain, and we used a location adjacent to the campus at the University of Texas in Austin. And when you go to Texas and you put up a sign that says free beer, you have no shortage of individuals prepared to get in your line. So, there are secrets to these things.
And so rules. Give us the rules.
Informally, you could say I have a Guinness World Record for the fact that our haircutting rule, our haircutting record, the records that I have captured or broken, contain some of the longest and most complicated list of rules and qualifications of anything Guinness tracks because of the difficulty of quantifying a haircut. So I'll give you an example, Chris, some of the rules. Rule number 1 is every individual that you utilize must have a full head of hair. So if you have an individual who's thin in the crown or significantly receded in the hairline, they're disqualified. You can't cut them. Less than a full head of hair is less than a haircut. Rule number 2, you must remove a minimum of 1/2 inch of hair from every hair on the head. So as an example, if I show up and I'm tapered down to about a 1.5 blade, you can't use me because you can't pull a 1/2 inch off me everywhere. So what we did was we used these criteria to pre-disqualify any candidate who wouldn't go into the count because I can't afford to cut you if I can't count you. Another example of a rule we have is you must leave 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch of hair from the front hairline to the top crown. That rule specifically is intended to eliminate a buzz cut over the top of the
Mm,
head. You cannot put a
right.
number 3 guard on a clipper, run it over the top of somebody's hair, and call it a haircut. It's not a haircut. That is either sheep shearing or agriculture. I'm not sure which, but it's not barbering or cosmetology. So those are examples of the criteria. So there were 18 of those unique criteria. I had to have judges whose qualifications were pre-approved by Guinness to serve as a judge. If you don't have a Guinness adjudicator, a representative of Guinness present, which truthfully at the time, I don't know about it now, but back then was cost prohibitive. You were on the hook for
Right.
$10,000 plus accommodations and travel from London. So you had your judges pre-qualified based on their resumes. So you had to file all the resumes. And remember, this is before email and attachments. This was all FedEx back and forth to London to do it all. Then you had to document everything, log sheets. You had signed affidavits. You had timing charts. You had the box that I sent to Guinness following the world record for approval of my record. I remember it cost $121 to Federal Express that package. It was such a box of aggregated data to do it. So, and here's what I tell people: breaking the Guinness World Record is not the tough part. The tough part is following the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first of all, that is amazing, and I'm also thinking that if everybody's saying, well, 189 bucks or whatever it was, that was then, not
Yeah,
now. Now it's like 100 bucks to send whatever an iPhone or whatever in that kind of package with that kind of
I was
weight.
I was
So that was
blessed
a
that
lot of money.
I had good sponsors and I had folks that were
Yeah.
underwriting, and I always have. Barbicide, the folks at Barbicide are my primary sponsor today for my educational activities, and God bless them. They,
Yeah.
in exchange for my enthusiastic support and promotion, they've been more than generous over the years of helping me be able to share my message with our industry. So, little plug for my friends, but without
Yeah,
those kind of
well,
friends, these things
as
don't happen.
yeah, and as we should. I mean, but let's face it, Barbicide helped us stay alive during COVID, et cetera. So God bless them for
And
that.
our
And
industry helped
but
by playing along when it was necessary to get serious about those things. So yeah, it's a very
yeah,
codependent relationship in a good way.
yeah. And so here's my second part, and it is, while I am in that first category of where I just want to know about peeing and judges, I do want to know, what is your method? What like how, if you asked me to do a haircut in 2 minutes, I probably couldn't get it parted in 2 minutes. So much less in, and I think your record was what, 55
Single
seconds?
fastest was
Was
55, yeah.
55
And I've done
seconds?
that
You know,
young and old and long and short and male and female and black and white and curly and straight, and it doesn't matter because it's not a haircut, it's an approach, it's a system.
right. So what is that? What approach? Because I'm sure there's many people out there that said, well, if it's doing in 55 seconds, it can't be that good. So what do you say
Well,
to
number
them?
one, I say to them, I will go upstairs in my office, take a picture of the certificate, and I'll text you the picture because it was good enough because they gave me the record. The other side of it
Yeah.
is, fortunately, due to the technologies we enjoy today, on my YouTube channel, there are multiple videos that literally break down the entire system. What I'll tell you, Chris, is this. I nicknamed it, it's called Revolution Cutting, and the subtitle on the system is called The Notion of Economy of Motion. And very simply put, and you'll understand this, cut each piece of hair once and move on to the next hair. There's not that much hair on a
Yes.
human head when you approach it in this way. I tell the story all the time of a woman that I worked with many years ago who was a very talented hair cutter. She worked in the chair next to me. And what was fascinating to me was we were so different. I attribute it to my logical background, my automotive technology background, and my pivot point education. I was always very scientific, very methodical, and very mathematical, if you will, in my haircutting. Now, the woman that worked next to me was artistic. So we would share clients based on who was available. We would do the same client's haircut on different weeks. The client would leave looking exactly the same, but the difference was I was parting, sectioning, holding, and cutting, and then parting, sectioning, holding, and cutting. And I would watch my friend cut hair. And I mean, we can use this word on the program. I described her as a hair masturbator. She would comb it and she would play with it and she would shuffle it around a little bit, and then she would comb it up and she'd nibble it a little more, and then she would play with it and she'd look at it, and then she'd pick it. And it used to make me crazy because in my mind, this woman was getting 5 haircuts from her when she was getting 1 haircut from me. So it's some of that kind of philosophical approach. The other key to it was, and I learned this from a guy way, way back when. It's a great story. I was considering to do some work for a company in our industry, and they sent a gentleman out to my salon to observe me. And he was going to spend a few hours watching me, and then we were going to go to lunch and talk about whether I would work for the company or not. So, of course, when he showed up, I'm going to bang out a haircut, and I'm into it, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm rocking and rolling this haircut. And when I got all done with 1 haircut, he said, I want to ask you to do something. I said, what's that? And he came over to my chair, and I'm not kidding you. He reached into his briefcase and he took out not this one, this is a little one. He took out a huge Sharpie marker, a big fat black Sharpie marker. And he said to me, he said, stand next to your chair. And I stood next to my chair, and on the floor of my hair salon with a big fat black Sharpie marker, he drew circles around my 2 feet. And then he said to me, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to do the next haircut, and I don't want you to take your feet out of the circles. And I went, okay. So client's in the chair, I'm standing in the circles, I'm cutting hair. But now I got to cut hair over here on the other side of the guy's head. And I can't reach over the top of the guy. And then it dawned on me, turn the chair.
Turn the chair.
It was about putting the miles on the client. So when I say the system was called revolution cutting, in very simple terms, the key to my world records is the hair cutter remains stationary and reorients the client to the hair cutter's position. In English, turn the chair.
Yeah.
And this was mind-blowing for me. And you know, if you've ever seen somebody with a curling iron running circles around a client, getting them wrapped up in the cord, you know, nowadays we have cordless clippers, but back in the day, this was really paradigm shifting to stand in one place. And this is classic barbering. Classic barbering is stand in one place and turn the chair. Classic cosmetology is to work behind the chair with the client facing the mirror. And it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's different because it achieves a different group of objectives.
Yeah. You know, I agree with you 100% on that. And I'll give you, like, I loved your word that you used for it. I'm going to shift to that word because I used to call it niggling, but I think yours is much more emphatic. But, you know, I guess the point is, and here's the point that I've been trying to get across to people for years, is that people think that the mirror is a communication device, and it is not. It is something to help to see to see perspective on the haircut that you're doing. And that's what I love that you said is turn the damn chair. You know, it's the same thing as when you talk about, you know, when people would just cut and look and cut and look and cut and look. And I think I coined that phrase that said, just cut the damn thing. You know, if you're confident in what you do, it's like, I can't remember who I was listening to. They said that, I think it stems from that, never let them see you sweat. But the reality is that you should look confident when you're cutting. Otherwise, they will tear you apart because they sense if you look like you're fearful, they lose confidence immediately, and that's when you see the bad client relationship come out. So, you know, and I remember my voice coach, he said to me, because I had this problem when I was learning how to read from cue cards and to make it sound natural. You know, he just said, look if you're going to screw up really big. And when they coach you on it, just say, Oh, you wanted me to do it that way. But he says, no matter what you do, look confident in what you do and how you're expressing yourself.
Well, I share I
So
share
I
with I
love
share with
that.
cos students and barber students all the time. We've all had that haircut where they've got a comb and they're going,
Yeah.
and finally the client looks up out of the top of their eyeballs and they go, "So, how long you been cutting hair?" Because they're reading confidence in your body language. Exactly your point. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure.
All right. So, and I love it. So, if people want to know, and I think you mentioned it, but I want to make sure this gets across. If they want to find out this method, where do they go?
Go to YouTube. If you go to Instagram and you click on my link tree, if you go to my website, ivanzoot.com, there's links. It's all on YouTube. And within YouTube is a playlist that will be labeled Secrets of the World Record. And as I've said, I have no less than a dozen videos that either cover the entire concept or break down and cover elements of it. And the other
Mm-hmm.
thing I tell people is one of the features of my website is a button that says Ask Ivan. And if you click on there, it opens
Mm-hmm.
up a page for your name, your email address, and your question. I don't have people. If you ask a question, you're going to hear from me. I
Mm-hmm.
commit to answering all questions within 24 hours, and I can share that most
Wow.
of the answers to most of the questions are, "Thank you for your question. Please click the link below and watch the video." Because so many of them have been
Yeah.
captured as FAQs. So I'm just going to go to my playlist and I'm going to send you a link to the whole thing. Also, I
Yeah.
caution people occasionally when you ask me a question, I will send you a video and it will not be my video, because there are lots and lots of people in our business and industry who have really, really good content. And if the best answer to your question doesn't happen to be my video, I don't have an ego issue with sharing a
Good.
good video no matter whose it is. So I encourage
Yeah.
people, if you can't find what you're looking for, YouTube sometimes is being crushed under the weight of its own content. Simply reach out and I'll hook you up with what you need.
Ivan, you said something that was really remarkable there, and I think something that needs to be happening in our industry more, and that is that let's face it, there is hundreds of good haircutters, colorists, etc., and we need to be supporting one another. And the interesting thing that I've heard, and I know you do this as well, but the thing that I've learned so much is when in talking to people that sometimes, I don't know, I don't think you have this, but I'm a little insecure. And, getting on and talking to somebody that you might be meeting for the first time can sometimes just at some point in my life was a bit ominous. And I must say that in forcing me to do this, I've learned that people at the top are more alike than they are different. And we bear so many resemblances. And we're so, eager just to say, look go and talk to so and so. Here, this person can help you. This is if you want a mentor to go to this person. And I think we just need to have more of that in our industry where we're willing to let everybody have a, that's going to sound wrong. We have to help people get to the source. And we have to do that by knowing there's other sources just than what come out of our own
Yeah.
mouth. So thank you
Yeah,
for that.
it's
I think that
build
was a
build a
brilliant
bigger
remark.
table. There's room
Exactly.
at the table for everyone to have a seat. More so than ever as a result of some of the tools and technologies we have. So shame
Yeah.
on you if you don't ask to pull up your chair.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. 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 Our coach, and with our business, we have a business coach that helps us along. And I remember one time, and I've talked about this a few times on our podcast, is about, excuse me, that abundance is actually a value, and it's okay to have abundance in your life, abundance of money, abundance of knowledge, abundance of love, abundance of laughter. And then you can ask for things as such. And I think that once we found that out, that was a value, it really helped us in our business and our personal life and our family relationships, etc. So thank you for
Sure.
that.
Absolutely.
This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. Now I want to jump a little bit about just based on timing here, is that you are so much more than your world records, and I've been skulking around in the background, and I may have the figures wrong here, but I think it's like something either 13 to 32 books that I think that I've heard that you've written, and first of all, congratulations. And I want to talk a little bit about your newest one, which is about the 100 clients in 100 days.
Yeah, I
And
actually just approved the artwork this morning for the cover of book number 15, and I can safely say I won't have it for IBS New York, but I will have the book available for purchase for the ABS show, for America's Beauty Show here in Chicago coming up very, very soon. So 15 is in the can and just going into production. And the most recent one was a second version of the 100 by 100 book. I originally wrote it's 100 new haircut customers in 100 days. It's a day-by-day, step-by-step program focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is new haircut client acquisition. It's a very honed and focused book. And I wrote it, and it's written from a very entrepreneurial perspective as a shop owner, as a suite owner, as a chair renter. And I had some inquiries, I had some requests from salon owners and from chain operators saying, we love that book, but we need a version of it that speaks to employees. So what I did was I went back and I rewrote the book. So book number 14 is really an edited version of book number 12, and that is originally it was called the Chain Salon Edition, as you can see here, but now those two books are called the Entrepreneur Edition and the Employee Edition. So the language and the positioning in the newest one, in the employee book, really just acknowledges two things. Number one, it acknowledges as an employee, you operate under the house rules of an employer, so you don't have unlimited autonomy in some of your business choices. And it also relies very heavily on the idea that as an employee, in exchange for the obligation to play by house rules, you also have supervisors. You have managers, you have coaches, trainers, mentors. You have a chain of command above you who have an obligation to support you in your pursuit of success. So there's, it's almost that double-edged sword of, I'm an employee, so I can't just do whatever I want. But on the other hand, as an employee, I now have systems and support that has an obligation to help make it all happen. So, it's double-sided like that. So that's the 100 by 100 book.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a symphony, isn't it? That, when you're working in an environment where, whether you're employee, trainer, owner, whatever that is, everybody's got to work together like a symphony, because if you work together, then the music you're playing is great. One person decides to do a solo when everybody else isn't, then it kind of wrecks the tune. So
Did you ever go to a band concert when you had a child in 5th grade?
Yeah. True. That's what it looked like. And, because I think that in our business right now, that you get this, owners are looking down on independent operators and vice versa and so on. But when you really look at the numbers in the game, it's how you play the numbers game in the whole thing of, and quite frankly, at the end game, it's probably going to turn out very much on its own. So you just have to choose what kind of a business that you want.
Absolutely. The trend towards suite rental and independent operator, what we'll call solopreneurship. It's an undeniable trend in our industry, but I think our industry has also discovered that it isn't just the moonshot. It's not just the money game everybody thinks it is, because many of the skills that make you a very, very talented operator do not really lend themselves to supporting you as an owner. So, and for some people, that's right in their wheelhouse. other people. And I think to some extent, I think the suite rental end of our business, I think they understand this, and I think they've gotten better at vetting who they will immediately, write a lease and rent a suite to, because if you operate a multi-unit suite operation, the last thing in the world you want is turnover or churn of your
Yeah.
tenants. That's not good for business either. So they don't want you to fail, and they realize, and some of them do a pretty good job of providing some education and things. They realize that being a landlord of a suite situation is more than just renting space for money. They, just like an employer, must take an active interest in your success and long-term viability. So it's to your point, it's that orchestra, if you will, or that combination of instruments, to carry the analogy, that will make the music sing.
Yeah. You know, damn, it's like going along with what I said earlier, just the more that we're alike, we're more alike than different. Um, I've always told people that, look, if you help people, whether they're working for you or alongside of you, is if you can help people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. If you help them get what they want, you'll help get what you want yourself personally. I didn't come up with that. I don't claim to. It's been around for 100 years. I always say take it a step further. Is if you can have sit downs with people and say, look at what do you want in your life? What do you want personally? What do you want from personal growth? And then you can help them get that and help them to plan a way. Now I'm speaking more from an owner perspective. So if you're somebody from a suite owner and you own that business, or whether you have a commission based business, salary based business, or whatever, I always believe you need to get yourself out, you get your tuchus out from behind the chair and get them doing what they need to do, have a vision for them and help them get what their vision is. They'll trust you more, they'll stay with you longer, and they'll be much more loyal to you before they will make the shift. And they will, most of them will make a shift. We all did. And I think that there's this thing in our business where if I treat them right, they're going to stay with me until they die. They won't. I mean, somebody may, but listen, everybody's going to leave you because they're either going to move, they're going to start their own business, or they're going to die. But everybody is going to leave you at some point in time. So if you can just make the time you have together more enjoyable, you're going to they're while they're there, they're going to be more loyal, and they will be loyal to you when they leave because they're always going to be singing your
I
praises.
learned some of these. I learned
So,
some of these lessons the hard way. Certainly, as an
yeah,
employer, and I've always believed, if you choose to be a salon owner, just like being a cosmetologist or barber, you're not in the business of cutting hair. You're in the business of building and cultivating relationships with humans. Being a salon
exactly.
owner is not the business of owning a business. It is the business of accepting the mantle of responsibility for the success of others. And I believe if you
Yeah,
look at salon ownership in that regard, to your point, give people what they want, you get what you want. I always believed, and I was mistaken, and I learned this the hard way. I always believed that people want to make money because I
yeah,
want to make money. And it was a bit of a
yeah,
wait a minute, what? To find out that people are driven by recognition, or driven by relationship, or driven by artistic expression. There's a whole list, and I had to learn that you have to sit down with an employee and go, what do you want? I had an employee, just as
yeah.
an example, when I finally had the conversation, you know what this woman wanted? This woman wanted to leave early enough every day so she would be home when her daughter got home from school. And as
Bingo.
soon as I knew that's what she wanted, it was, if you give me that, this woman was never going anywhere. I said, fine, you're out of here every single day at 3 o'clock so you can be home by 3:30. And all of a sudden, a level of loyalty, a level of appreciation, a work ethic tied to my goals, because she knew she
Hmm.
had what she needed and wanted. And even if that meant that there were prime shifts she wasn't working that would negatively impact her total income, she, at this age, for that child, she needed to be in the house when the child walked in.
Yeah, she was fine
And
with
she
that.
and
That's
and,
that's
and she
okay.
and that
Yeah,
gave her what she wanted. That never would have dawned on me at that point in time in my life. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, and I love what you're saying here because I think that there's been this our world in our beauty industry has it's been a slow shift. And they say trends happen every 6 years. 2 years in, 2 years hot, 2 years out. But I think that some of the trends have lasted longer. But one of the things I've noticed is the evolution of what it takes for our industry to change. But I will say, and I'm hoping you'll agree with me on this, that in the last number of years, it has shifted dramatically, particularly because of COVID. And I've heard from numerous salon owners that say that they want different things. They only want to work X amount of hours. They only want to work so many days a week, or I want to go on holidays. And they kept saying, well, they don't want to work 5 days a week. And I went, so what's the
Yeah.
problem?
Hire,
Let them
have
do
them work
that.
4 days a week and
Hire them
hire
with
two
that.
more. You make Maybe you're going to have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
carry more bodies on the docket in order to be able to accommodate that lower schedule demand. Yeah, you just give
Yeah,
them what they want. To your earlier point, and yeah,
yeah. And then you'll get to that point. I loved it. And I also, there's your I've looked at a lot of the things that you've done, and especially a lot of the videos, etc. And a lot of them are that if you want to know anything about raising prices, go to Ivan. And I want to shift that a little bit differently because I don't think that everything that you do. I've listened to a lot of the things that you've done, and I don't think that you're necessarily an advocate for raising prices. I think you're an advocate for proper pricing. And is that a fair
I
description?
very well put. I call it sometimes right pricing. And the phrase that I
Yeah.
use when I talk about this is I call it respect the balance. And what I mean by that, I say this all the time. If you're charging, and I'm random numbers, and I have to use numbers that Ivan can do math with, so we have to keep it fairly simple. If you're charging $25 for a haircut and you are delivering a $50 experience, you're going to go out of business. And if you charge
Yeah.
$50 for a haircut and you deliver a $25 experience, you're going to go out of business, probably at about the same rate of speed. And it's about respecting what I call the client's perception of value. And value is defined as the feeling that you're getting more than you're paying. And everyone in any
Hmm.
business environment, in any way, has to be sure they're delivering that value proposition. And that value proposition represents what I call the magic dime. And I use this as an example. Pre COVID, part time, working in a barbershop in this area, I was doing haircuts for $20 in a barbershop that was opened in 1963. $20 barbershop, no appointments, get in, get a haircut, and get out. And at $20, it was incumbent upon me to see to it that the experience in the eyes of the customer felt as though it was worth $20.10. The dime represents the
Hmm.
added value, the feeling that you're getting more than you're paying. Now, I went to beauty school with a buddy, lives in my community. Our children went to high school together. He owns a shop not far from where I was cutting hair, 3 minutes away by car. He's getting $180 for a haircut. And it's incumbent upon him that everyone who sits in his chair leaves his chair feeling as though the experience was worth $180.10. It's the
Makes sense.
same dime. The dime represents that sense of added value. I can't tell you what your market, what your environment, what your circumstances dictate as a price value proposition, but I can tell you, you got to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's so true. That's what I've always said is that if you're, first of all, you shouldn't be ashamed nor apologize for raising your prices, but you should make sure that the haircut that you're doing, the worth of it, the value of it is slightly more than what you're doing because that way, and I like actually I'm going to give you credit. I always believe in giving credit where I got information from, but I'm going to use your dime one because the way that I used to put it was I would say, look, if you want to raise your prices and you're charging $20, make sure that your haircut's worth 25. Then what you can do is you raise them to 25, then they'll say, "Oh, well, that's what it was worth anyway." And then, but you better make sure then when it's 25 that you better be doing a $30
It's
haircut
the same
in
concept,
value.
absolutely.
And
And
the
and
same
this is
concept.
where to make this a little timely, I've spoken about this online recently. We are currently in a situation in which we are experiencing, and others have spoken of this. We're experiencing some consumer pushback right now because post COVID, we have seen rapid price escalation in every
Right.
industry, but certainly in our industry for the first time. And a lot of people made up for lost time by taking some pretty big bites on their price increases, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing as long as it can hold up to and withstand the value test. Where we're seeing pushback is when clients are going, I'm not feeling this is worth 50. And then what happens is, and we saw this in 2008 when the economy slipped. I've been in the game long enough that I've been through some of these cycles. Consumers right now are doing something called trading down market. And what that means is,
Mm.
if you lived in the Chicago suburbs and you went downtown to get a haircut, when the economy tightened or you questioned value, you got a haircut in the burbs. If you were getting a haircut in the burbs at a fancy salon, you went to a more moderate priced salon. If you were at a moderate priced salon, you might have gone to a privately owned small establishment. If you're doing that, you might have gone to a chain. And if you were going to a chain, you might have gone to Walmart and bought a clipper. But everybody is testing
Mm.
down market. And here's what happens with the down market test. When a consumer tests down market, and in '08, when I was in an education role with a major manufacturer, the chains understood this. In '08, the chains understood, and it's happening right now. Chain salons across America are seeing people coming in for a visit who previously didn't consider them a viable alternative. And so they went to check it out. I'm not going to use any names, but
Mhm.
they said, I'm going to go try a haircut down at Zippy Clips and see how that goes. And what happens is one shot. If they go to Zippy Cuts and they have, at the lower price, an acceptable experience, they have determined that they were logically correct in taking the chance and trading down market, and they can get value at that lower price. The flip side of that is if they try to go to Zippy Cuts once, and if in any way, shape, or form the experience is lacking, what they have now done is they have now substantiated the need and the reason to spend more and to do more to get
Right.
satisfaction. You validated their desire to be at that higher priced environment. So, and again, what happens is, and everyone, no matter where you are in the spectrum of our industry, you are subject, unless you're at the very top of the business, you're subject to experiencing down market testing. And my watchword for people is you better make sure that when they do test you down market, you've got to hit it out of the park because you're only going to get one shot. Otherwise, they will go running back to whence they came.
Yeah. And right back to that same triangle we talked at the beginning, regardless as if you're in the urban, whether you're in the chain, wherever you are, it's got to have an equal balance of skill, relationship, meaning how are you doing your consultation, how are you treating the client, is it a positive experience, and the sales that go along with
Yeah, I
that.
mean,
So
it covers
I
everything
think
from is your shirt clean? Do you smell like cigarettes? Is the bathroom clean? Are the magazines in the magazine rack disheveled? Those things all fall into this big bucket that is labeled experience, the customer experience.
mhm,
And we all represent a different, we pound our stake in the turf based on the experiential package we endeavor to present to the public. And in the words of Sam Walton from Walmart, on any given day for any given reason, the customer has the opportunity to fire you. um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I want to I think that there's this thing that I see constantly in our industry, and I know because I was there. I when I finally started making money, and I could have made it a whole lot quicker than I did, but from the path that I chose, if I had money in my pocket, I burned it. It was there, and it would be just aching to come out of my pocket. And I had all the more money that I made, the at the end game, I didn't have any more profit, as we're going to call it. And I loved in one of the stories that you wrote, you talked about profit. And I don't know if you've if you've read the book or had any inklings with um, Mike McAllowitz on Profit First. And
I've
I
heard it
think it's
referenced.
so.
I haven't consumed any of the materials myself, but I've heard references to it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a nugget that, because I know when you talk on this a lot, the way he puts it is what's a traditional um, traditional accounting principle. Whatever you're taking in, you take your expenses off of that, and what's left is profit. So income minus expenses equals profit. But if you looked at it the way that I grew up, I had income, I paid my expenses, I had a lot of money, which I think is what happens to a lot of hairdressers. Then, ooh, those shoes look really good. Ooh, that vacation sounds really good. Ooh, look at, I got a new car, but I could up my part because I look a little better in this other car. What he talks about is a little flip on that. He says income minus profit equals expenses. And what he talks about is, he says, look at pay your, that's, it's, again, it's not a new concept. Pay yourself first, but that doesn't go in your pocket. That you get put away so that you can have money for your family, money for your retirement, money for whatever that is that you want to do. But that's the profit they talk about. And then he says, what's left over, that's what you pay your expenses with. And included in your expenses is your um, your own
Your own compensation.
compensation.
Yeah.
Your own compensation. You have to allow for remember, what I get paid is what I was worth. And if I'm an I see owners do this all the time. Oh, like, I'm just putting my money back in the business. No, you should be, what would you have to do if you hired that person? That's the wage you should be getting. You should be putting that aside, and your company should be making a profit. It's like your shares that if not, why don't you just have a chair have a salon you go to at the chair, take your money, go home, and invest in stock market or wherever else, or things you believe
Yeah.
in. So and I do that because I think that people got to start thinking about your profit. What's there at the end of the game for you and your
I'll give you
family?
a good example of a great way that your listening community, especially younger people, students, recent graduates, people getting into the business who maybe for the first time in their life really have money in a meaningful way. And those that are successful are going to have a lot of money. I have a very simple system that falls into the same category. I've talked about it for years. I called it divvy your tips. And the idea was this:
Yeah.
all day long as you accumulate tip income, keep all that money when it's cash. Obviously, when it's cards, it's different, but keep all that money. Don't cash in the little bills for big bills. Keep it in small bills. And then on the countertop, you have piles. Now, everybody's piles, the number of piles will be different and the names of the piles will be different. But I'll use an example. You take that handful of small bills and you go, one for my IRA, one for my wife's IRA,
Yes.
one for kid number one's college, one for kid number two college, one for the rainy day fund, one for my pocket. And then you go back and you go,
Yeah.
and one and one and one, and you divvy it into these piles. Now, you deposit this money in the IRAs, in the rainy day savings account. Maybe you've got a pile for vacation. Maybe you've got a pile for a new truck. Everybody's got different things for which they are saving. But one of those piles, only one of those piles, is the pocket pile. And that's your
Yeah.
what they call WAM, WAM, walking around money. But now that money represents only a fraction because, and I say this, tip income is real income. You're going to account for it, you're going to report it, you're going to pay tax on it, but you're also going to, and I use this example of just tips because it's a small money concept, but I always say if you're not good at managing small money, the universe will never give you the opportunity to manage big money.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Wow. I did we just go through about like a week's worth, or actually 2 years worth of information that we went through right there? I'm just going to hit you into the what we call our rapid fire stuff right now.
Absolutely.
And again, quick questions, quick answers. If you know they needed to be expanded upon a little, that's okay
Okay.
too. Okay, good. So, in the creative process, what turns you on?
Travel, exposure to the world.
Love it. What stifles it?
Same old, doing the same thing over and over again.
Love it. Oh, I love this one. An event or a show that you did. I'm sure there's many, but the first one that comes to your mind.
Well, when you ask that, you say the first one. I'll say the first one. 1,000 years ago, I'm going to take you way back because you probably knew these guys. The first time I ever did an event in the beauty industry was a Miller and Gould beauty supply
Of
show
course,
in Akron, Ohio in
Ohio.
1980. God, I don't even remember. But I'd never done a
Yep.
show before. It was a first time standing on the floor next to a table full of clippers. But I've never forgotten that event. It stuck out in my mind. You know, and all those little dealers are gone now, but my God, so much fun.
Yeah. That was a different
Oh my God,
era.
it was a lifetime.
Just for
It
the
was two
people,
lifetimes ago.
the people that don't understand this and see the way that the industry is right now. Now you've got you'll think of the majors, and you got what, five or six majors you go to, and then there's a bunch of little stuff that goes on. When we traveled the circuit 100 years ago, you could have a bit that you would do. In other words, you'd say, "I'm showing these haircuts. I've got my pattern that I'm going to do," and there was hundreds of different distributors that were going on, and you could literally go every weekend to a different distributor, do the same thing. You never had to worry about it, but you did the same gig over and over again, and it has
And the
changed.
flip side of it though was
So
with that much repetition, man, you were
yeah.
good back in those days.
Oh
You were
yeah.
so hot.
Oh yeah.
And my God, it was fun.
You were
Oh,
clean. You were
oh,
clean. It was good. Um, okay, things in life that you dislike the most.
things in life that I dislike the most. Other people's children.
I love that you say what everybody else thinks. And in life, what do you love the
My
most?
kids.
Like, oh Lord, I love this. Oh, here's a heavy one. Most difficult time in your life.
Most difficult time in my life. I made, what in hindsight was not a good decision to have a first child and open a salon all in the same year.
Of
It was a
course.
challenge. I mean, we got through it. There was a lot of wrestling through, and my God, we didn't have money, we didn't have anything, but we got through it, and
Mm,
it all works out. But that was a tough time for sure.
you and I have much more in common. Uh, things that you dislike about our
Things
industry.
that I dislike about our industry: unreported income. Unreported income is a cancer in the beauty and barber industry.
Bingo, bingo. Things you like about our
The
industry.
incredible opportunity that exists for literally everyone. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your family comes from. I don't care how long you've been here. In the United States of America, in the beauty and barber industry, the streets are still paved in gold.
Yep. Proudest moment of your life.
Proudest moment of my life. Wow. It'd be quick and easy to say things like world records and things like that. But I think the proudest moment of my life was probably thus far when my older son was ordained as a rabbi. That was really a
Oh,
significant educational milestone, something that meant a great deal to multiple generations within my family. And, I can take partial credit for, kicking him down the road and getting him to that milestone. So that was a biggie.
yeah. Wow.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on that. Um, living person that you admire the most.
Living person that I admire the most. Um, Probably my father-in-law. Somebody who has done a variety of things, worked extremely hard, and then not worked really hard because he learned how to think and do it the easy way, um, and was my partner in the salon and really very instrumental in a lot of my success.
Oh, love it. Um, a person, living or dead, that you wish you could meet and why.
Um, Interesting answer coming from this Jewish kid whose son is a rabbi. Jesus, to
Oh,
really gain
yeah.
an understanding of what was really going on there, and how did Christianity as this world's number one most dominant religion, which while I am not a Christian believer, I have an incredible respect for it, and knowledge to try to understand it. And of all the people living or dead, he's got to be high on an awful lot of people's lists.
Yeah. Something that people don't know about you.
Well, there's not much because I share an awful lot, but I can ride a unicycle.
No way.
There you go.
No, I'd kill myself on one of those. A month off. Where would you go? What would you do?
Oh, I would be fishing the entire month.
What for what?
Largemouth bass or big size bluegill. And
Ooh,
probably,
have you got your own
Northern
boat?
Illinois, we got plenty of them. Yeah, I'd fish for a whole month.
And you have your own
No,
boat?
no, I pound the shoreline. And I live in Lake County, Illinois, so there's no shortage of places to play. But yeah, I'd go fishing.
Love it. Um, what's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear. I'm going to cheat that one and go, I'm not really afraid of much of anything. There were certain things when I was growing up, my kids are growing up. Fear is not an option. Fear was never acceptable. Fear only meant you either didn't have enough information or you hadn't tried something yet. And I don't work with a lot of fear. And I think part of that comes from the fact that I know some folks that really have spent much of their life paralyzed by fear.
Yeah,
And I have issues with that. So I don't think I'm
yeah,
afraid of much of anything.
love it. Favorite curse word?
Fuck. And I told you earlier, there's a funny story behind that. I worked for a large company, family business, and we were at one of our semi-annual national sales conference meetings with the family and all of us sitting around a conference table. And the daughter, a little bit younger than me, the daughter of one of the owners accidentally let slip an F-bomb at the table. And I was immediately adjacent to her, and she turned to me and she apologized for dropping the F-bomb. And the person on the other side of her said, "Why did you apologize to him?" And she turned to them and she said, "Oh, Ivan doesn't swear, and I wouldn't be comfortable swearing in front of him, so I apologized." And everybody at the table looked at her and goes, "What?" And I turned to her and I said, "It's not that I don't swear. I don't swear in front of you. You're
Yeah.
the owner's daughter."
I love it. Your favorite comfort food?
I'm a Chicagoan, so we got to throw down hard in the pizza category.
Oh, good. So you're large crust then,
No,
right?
not necessarily. That's the beauty of it. And that's why I argue with the
Yeah,
New Yorkers. New York's got one kind of pizza and it's just not that good. Chicago is
yeah,
the epicenter. We've got stuffed and we've got deep dish and we've got Sicilian and we've got thin crust. We've got tavern crust. We've got Mediterranean. We've got Eastern style. You can literally eat a different kind of pizza in Chicago every single day and never have a bad experience if you know where to eat.
right. I love Chicago pizza, and I have to tell you an interesting story. The first time that I went to Italy, I just went, "I've got to have pizza. I'm going for pizza." And a good friend of mine, Johnny Stellato, and I went and with our wives, we went for some pizza. And I remember sitting in this place and I looked at the pizza when it came out. And it was really thin crust, and there was on one there was white sauce and potatoes, and on another side there was just this bread. And I went, where's the stuff? You can't tell me. And this is like bread with tomato sauce on it. So yeah, I love Chicago pizza, and every time that I go there, that's one of my favorites as
Yeah, my
well.
wife and I, my
If
wife
you
and I
could
were
change,
recently in a dining establishment in like a food court, and there was a guy sitting across from us that was folding his pizza in half, which in Chicago is a sin, and then he was dipping it
sacrilege.
in ranch, which is absolutely not acceptable. And I'm like, this is a heathen. He's not even. Come on.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would
I
you
always
do?
joke around.
And
I
I
always
don't.
joke around and say I was supposed to be a couple of inches taller. That never worked out.
I always said, look at, I'm not overweight. I'm just
Yeah,
under
there you
tall. I
go.
should have actually be 7'4". You know.
No, I'm
Um,
5'8" and a half, and both of my boys are 6 feet and above, and I've always joked around about that. I'm not exactly like Tom Cruise with a short man's disease kind of syndrome. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've always jokingly said a couple inches would have been all right. But yeah, I'm fine.
Your most treasured possession.
My most treasured possession. Um, wow. I don't know that there's something off the top of my head. I think there may be in certain contexts. I have a paperweight upstairs in my office that had belonged to my dad, that was on his
Yeah.
desk in his office for many years. It's very special. I have a pair of blending scissors from barber school that I will never use again and are sitting in a box and I would never get rid of. That have some meaning. And I have a fishing lure that I inherited from an older gentleman who's a friend of the family that I won't fish with because I know I'll lose it. And these things have
Yeah.
they have meaning. They have
Yeah.
objects are ascribed meanings. But I don't know that I have one that's ranked up there a little higher. No.
Yeah. I mean, I that's one of the best responses that I've heard because I really think it's more about when you have if you have something that's a possession, it's about the memory that goes along with it. Like my dad gave me a watch. It was what was it? I don't even remember the name. Argent Picard, and it's rose gold. He got it from. He actually won it in a poker game from Errol Flynn, and he gave it to me. I never wear it, but it's one of my most treasured one because it makes me think of my
Yeah, I
dad.
got a wrench
Um,
that was what hung on a nail in my grandfather's basement. I don't think in my lifetime he ever used it. I've never used it, but it's got a certain sort of
yeah,
specialness to it, if you will. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's their
yeah.
presence. Yeah. Something in the industry that you haven't done, and I don't know if there's much that you haven't, but something you haven't done, but you want to
Well,
still.
it's the bully pulpit when you do this kind of program and you've got the NAHA award over your shoulder like that. Um,
It's
that would be kind
eBay.
of an enjoyable piece of recognition to win an
Yeah,
award at that level. But I'm also at the point in my career in which just about every month someone wants to give me a lifetime achievement award. And at this point, a lifetime achievement award I interpret to mean get out of the way. There's there's young people that want that spot, so move along, my friend. But I still got a few good hair shows in me. I've still got a few inventions or ideas for some things that I want to introduce to the industry. I got a new book coming out, so I'm not done. But I've had a lot of fun, but there's a little more fun yet to be had.
I think you've got a lot more left in you, bud. Um, if you had, and I don't, I will not accept, because I'm going to ask you if you've had one do-over, what would it be? And I've had so many people say, well, if I wouldn't be the person that I am now if I wouldn't have made those mistakes, but I'm not accepting that. So if you had one do-over, what would it
If I
be?
had one do-over, what would it be? I think it would have been wait 2 years to open the salon after the kid was born, tied to that
Mm,
year
yeah,
of year and a half of some challenge. Because I mean, on one hand, I went into the salon. My father-in-law and I put equal money in, and at the time, it was our house money. That was the money my wife and I were going to use to buy a house, and it was either buy a house or buy a salon, and you can have a house too, but you're going to have to wait for the house. The beautiful thing about it
yeah,
was I was at a stage in my life in which I looked at that sum of money and I said, if I lose it all, if this doesn't work, I'm young, I got lots of years, it's okay. So I
yeah,
went into it without the ominous burden of I put my life savings in on this. But at the same time, it was a lot on the plate at once that it wasn't a great idea. Had I waited 2 more years, probably would have been sitting on a lot more money to go into that venture. But at the same time, I might have missed out on that space that we took, and who knows? But I might have gapped that
yeah.
out a little bit. That might have been a better choice.
Love it. Okay, tomorrow, you couldn't do hair. You couldn't have anything to do with the industry. What would you
I
do?
would be an influencer in the fishing industry, teaching people how to catch more fish, which is no different than teaching people how to catch more haircuts.
It's
I would take
exactly.
everything I know and apply it in another circus.
Love it. I absolutely love it. If you had one wish for our industry, what would it be?
One wish for our industry would be that people entering into our industry had a solid understanding of that price value concept. if they really understood that you can do business at any price as long as you deliver on that value proposition. Your first job is not your only job and not your last job. It's a learning opportunity to move you ahead, but understanding that in any situation at any price, if you can figure out how to deliver value, this game is so good.
Yes, it is. Um, Ivan, I just want to make sure that we give a shout out that if anybody wants to follow you, it is at Ivan Zoot,
.com.
correct?
Yeah, just four little letters. Keep it simple. Same thing for
Yeah.
Instagram, for X, for Threads, for the YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you type in my name, you're going to find it all.
And if they do want to contact you personally, they can just go to your web page and just hit the
Talk
talk
to
to.
Ivan button, the red button on the top of every page. Just hit that, and it's going to open up that page, that opportunity, and just type away. And again, I don't have people. You're going to talk to me.
Ivan, I truly appreciate getting to know you more. We passed each other in the dark. This is the first time we've had this. I really feel that I'm akin to you. I feel that we've had a great visit, and I love chatting with you. So I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, just say thank you so much for giving up your time and your energy for being here and sharing with our peeps. So
I, I,
thank you
I
so
very much
much.
appreciate you reaching out and inviting me to do this. It's fun to get to spend some time with you, get to know you a little bit, and we will cross paths, I'm sure, sooner than later.
I'm sure there will be a glass of wine, a pizza, or something in there somewhere
Down
along
the
the
road, you
line.
got it.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you.